Hey everybody, it's Justin and welcome to my pit lane garage. Today I got a quick, well somewhat quick DIY video on how to install ARP wheel stud bolts to your stock wheel hubs on your FRS, BRZ, or 86. Now these ARP wheel studs are extended length, which you would use if you're installing spacers on your car or if you want to have a different stance that requires a different size wheel offset, something like that. In my case, I installed the AP Racing big brake kit onto the car. So I need these extended wheel lugs not only for additional strength, but so I can also run a 10mm spacer on the car. So again, these ARP wheel studs are common for people that track their cars or maybe race their cars. They are a lot stronger than the stock ones. You don't have to worry about snapping a wheel stud or something like that. So I've got the car mostly apart already. It's down to the wheel hub assembly itself. It's still bolted up to the car. I did remove the caliper and the rotor as I am in the middle of the AP brake install as well. But this DIY video is just going to cover how to get the wheel hub off of the front of the car and how to install those extended ARP wheel studs. Alright, so getting after it, you can see we have a bare wheel hub down here. If you want to know how to take off the caliper and the rotor itself, refer to my AP Racing big brake kit installation video. It shows you how to do that in there. So to get this hub off, there's basically 4 bolts behind the carrier here. They're 4 14mm bolts, so grab your 14mm wrench. We're going to put the wrench on the bolts in the back, and I'm going to use my 5-pound hammer trick to loosen them up. We're also going to want to remove the speed sensor, so grab a 10mm socket. I've only loosened up the hub bolts. Before we take it off, we'll want to take the speed sensor off. Slide that out of the way. And I just like to stick the bolt back in there so we don't lose it. Now we can go ahead and loosen up the bolts on the back of the hub. As we're sliding out the last bolt here, obviously you want to grab a hold of the hub so it doesn't fall away onto the ground. So there's our last bolt, and the hub assembly just pulls out. Don't forget to clean out all of the faces on the carrier section so it's nice and clean when we put the parts back in. Clean the back of the hub face itself. Now we'll take it up to the bench and show you how to get these studs out. Alright, so we got the hub up on the tool bench, and to do this job by yourself, if you don't have access to a machine press like me, you're going to have to get this tool right here, which is a ball joint separator tool. So it's got the forks on one end, the hand on the other end with the bolt on the other end. You can get this at most auto shops. I'll also put a link to the part down in the description as well. But you definitely need a tool like this to get the wheel studs not only removed, but also the ARP ones pressed back in. So I'll start by saying that this is not exactly the easiest job. It does take a little bit of elbow grease and definitely patience. It takes a little while to get these things popped out, but actually popping the wheel studs out of the stock hub is the easy part. It's getting the other ones in, which is a little bit more difficult. So what we're going to do is start by taking our tool with the fork piece on the bottom, align that around the wheel stud like so. Take the fork in the bottom of the wheel stud so it looks like that. And then the top part goes to the top of the wheel stud. Once you have them positioned, you can take the nut on the bottom of the tool and just start threading it in or tightening it down. Once you have it fitted properly on there, like so, grab your socket wrench with a 7/8 socket on the end of it, and then just start cranking away on the bolts. What it'll do is it'll make a little pop sound as it starts to release from the hub. There goes the first pop. I'll show you what it did here. As you can see, hopefully you can see there, it released from the wheel hub. So just keep on cranking until it pops itself out. So there we go, pretty simple to pop these guys out. Slide it out of the way. So once you have the first one out, just go ahead and continue with the rest of them. I've had no problems getting them off on the other hub. They just pop right out for the most part. Get those out and we'll show you how to put the new ones in. Alright, so all of the stock wheel studs are out of the stock hub. We'll show you how these compare in size compared to the ARP studs. Now, the traditional way of installing the new studs into the wheel hub is to take a giant stack of washers like this that fits over the wheel stud bolt. Take your wheel stud, slide it into the hub, drop your stack of washers onto the wheel stud, and then take an open-ended lug nut like this one. And then what you can do is start cranking away on that lug nut and it will pull your wheel stud into the hub. So the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna start off by using this method where I'll put the washers onto the wheel stud, crank it down as far as I can get it. To be honest with you, I could not get a wheel stud entirely installed by using this method. So I'll show you an additional method where we use the tool that we had purchased to take the studs out to squeeze the rest of the stud into place. So we'll go ahead and get started. I got my washers in place, my wheel stud in place. Tighten this down by hand. Get my wrench on there and start cranking away. Now, the most awkward part about this is leverage. It's really hard to hold the wheel hub in place while you're cranking the wrench. So I think that's about all I'm gonna do with that method. As you can see, I've got the wheel stud pulled in there a little bit, about halfway or so. I'm gonna take my lug nut off, and then what I'm gonna do is remove about half of the washers, and then I'm gonna show you how we can push it the rest of the way in using our ball joint separator tool. So we're gonna take our ball joint separator tool, we've got our medium stack of washers on the hub, and basically we're gonna do this in the reverse fashion that we took the studs out. So we flipped the tool over from the way we had it when we took them out. So it's like this. We're gonna line up the fork on the washers on the top, and then on the bottom, the other hand there is lined up on the face of the wheel stud. So we'll get this lined up, tighten it down by hand, make sure our fork is centered on the washers there properly. So once everything is seated by hand, like so, basically take this, set it down on the bench, put the correct socket on your wrench, and then what I like to do is put it facing in this orientation. That way you can hold the tool down and actually just crank it forward just like that. So as we're tightening the bolt, we're actually squeezing the wheel stud into the hub. Now it does take some effort and a little strength. You do get tired after you get to the fifth one. But as I'm doing this, I'm checking to make sure all of my washers and the fork on the tool is still aligned properly. None of the threads are getting smushed by the washer or anything like that. And that the foot on the other side of the wheel stud is still in the proper orientation. So crank it down until it stops and it looks like the wheel stud is seated in the wheel hub. Then we can start backing it out. All right, there we go. Wheel stud is installed. Not terribly difficult. Again, like I said, it does take a little bit of strength and patience to get that sucker cranked in there, but it will go in. Take your time. Everything should work out. There we go, everybody. All 5 wheel studs installed onto the stock hub. It took me about 10 or 12 minutes to do the remaining 4. So again, not too difficult of a job as long as you have the right tools and you're willing to put in the time and a little bit of strength to crank those suckers in place. We can now go ahead and put our hub assembly back into the car just the same way that it came out. We'll start hand tightening all of our bolts onto the back. Now that we have the bolts all hand tightened, we're going to take our torque wrench, set it to 48 pound-feet of torque, and torque down the 4 bolts. Bolts are torqued, our wheel hub spins freely. We'll go ahead and put the speed sensor back in as well. All right, everybody, there you go. We have the ARP extended wheel studs installed into the hub on the BRZ. This how-to should apply to pretty much any car that has a similar wheel stud configuration where they press into the hub like that. Again, if you're looking for how to assemble the rest of the pieces, refer to my AP Racing brake kit installation video that will go over the rest of this stuff. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope the video was helpful. If you have any thoughts or comments, please leave them below. I will also again put a link to those ARP extended wheel studs in the description. Thank you all for watching. I will talk to you all next time.